Madeline Grace Pierce stared at her phone in horror, her perfectly manicured fingers frozen above the screen. Time seemed to stop in her corner office on the 47th floor of the Blackwood Investment Tower, Manhattan's skyline a blur through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The message she'd just sent screamed back at her in mock innocence. "You don't have any idea the effect you have on me. Sometimes I just want to grab you by your tie and kiss you breathless." Her heart stopped. The message wasn't sent to her best friend Melissa Carter's number. Instead, it had gone directly to Andrew James Blackwood, CEO, billionaire, and the very man she'd been fantasizing about. "No, no, no," she whispered, frantically tapping her phone as if she could somehow recall the message. The 3 dots appeared immediately, indicating he was typing a response. Madeline felt her world tilting on its axis. His reply came swift and devastating. "Now?" The phone slipped from her trembling hands onto her pristine desk, landing between her perfectly organized planner and the steaming cup of green tea she'd barely touched. The morning sun caught her blonde waves as she buried her face in her hands, her cheeks burning with mortification. For 11 months, she'd maintained the perfect facade as his executive assistant. 11 months of suppressing every flutter in her stomach when he walked past her desk, his cologne leaving a trail that haunted her thoughts. 11 months of pretending she didn't notice how his emerald eyes lingered on her during meetings, or how his voice dropped an octave when they worked late nights reviewing quarterly reports. And now, with one misdirected message, she'd shattered that carefully constructed wall between them. A knock on her office door made her jump. "Ms. Pierce?" The familiar deep voice sent electricity down her spine. Madeline straightened in her chair, smoothing down her navy pencil skirt with trembling hands. "Come in, Mr. Blackwood." Andrew filled the doorframe, his 6'2" frame commanding attention in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His dark brown hair was slightly tousled as if he'd been running his fingers through it, a habit she'd noticed he had when deep in thought. His green eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I think we need to discuss that message," he said, closing the door behind him with a soft click that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Madeline stood, adjusting her cream silk blouse nervously. "Mr. Blackwood, I am so sorry. That message was clearly inappropriate and completely unprofessional. It was meant for someone else." The lie felt bitter on her tongue. He moved closer, his presence filling her spacious office until it felt intimately small. "Someone else who wears ties?" A hint of amusement colored his voice, but his eyes remained intense, searching her face. I can explain," she started, but her usual eloquence failed her. How could she explain away months of suppressed attraction, of meaningful glances, and charged silences? Madeline. The use of her first name sent a shiver through her. In 11 months, he'd never called her anything but Ms. Pierce. "Look at me." She forced herself to meet his gaze, her blue-gray eyes wide with vulnerability. The morning light streaming through the windows cast shadows across his strong features, highlighting the slight scruff along his jaw that he always had by day's end. "The truth," he said softly, moving closer until barely 2 feet separated them. Was that message really meant for someone else? Her heart thundered in her chest. The professional part of her brain screamed to maintain the lie, to preserve the careful boundaries they'd established. But something in his expression, a mixture of hope and hunger, made her reckless. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible. It wasn't. The tension between them crackled like electricity before a storm. Andrew took another step forward, close enough now that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. "Do you know how many times I've wanted to hear you say something like that?" His voice was low, rough with emotion. "How many times I've had to stop myself from crossing this line?" Madeline's breath caught. "We can't," she said, even as every fiber of her being screamed otherwise. "The company, your position, the board. I don't care about any of that right now." His hand rose to her face, fingers hovering just shy of touching her cheek. "Tell me to stop, Madeline. Tell me this isn't what you want, and I'll walk away. We'll never speak of this again." The choice hung between them, heavy with possibility. Through the glass walls of her office, she could see the busy workplace beyond. Analysts hurrying between meetings, assistants carrying stacks of files, the ordinary rhythm of corporate life continuing oblivious to the moment of truth unfolding in her office. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed loudly on the desk, shattering the tension. The caller ID showed Melissa's face, probably calling to discuss their planned brunch this weekend. Reality came crashing back. Andrew stepped back, his professional mask sliding back into place so quickly it left her dizzy. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, Ms. Pierce. Please bring the quarterly projections." Just like that, the moment shattered. Madeline watched him stride out of her office, his shoulders rigid with tension. She sank back into her chair, her legs weak, and picked up her phone to see 3 messages from Melissa. "Girl, where are you? You never take this long to respond. OMG, did something happen with Hot Boss Tom? Call me ASAP." If only Melissa knew. Madeline took a deep breath, gathering the strength to face the next challenge. Sitting through a 2-hour board meeting across from the man she'd just confessed her feelings to, pretending nothing had changed. But everything had changed. That single misplaced message had cracked the foundation of their carefully maintained professional relationship, and Madeline knew there was no going back. The only question was, where would they go from here? She gathered the meeting materials with trembling hands, checking her reflection in her phone's dark screen. Her cheeks were flushed, her blue-gray eyes bright with emotion. Taking another deep breath, she straightened her spine and headed for the conference room. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. This was only the beginning. The board meeting was torture. 2 hours of pretending to focus on quarterly projections, while hyper-aware of Andrew's presence at the head of the table. Madeline's pen moved mechanically across her notepad, taking minutes she'd probably have to rewrite later. Every time he spoke, his deep voice sent shivers down her spine, making her hyper-conscious of their earlier encounter. "And that brings us to the Morrison merger," Andrew was saying, his commanding presence drawing every eye in the room. Every eye except Madeline's, which remained stubbornly fixed on her notes. "Ms. Pierce has prepared a comprehensive analysis of the potential risks and benefits." Her head snapped up at the mention of her name, meeting his gaze for the first time since he'd left her office. The intensity in his green eyes made her breath catch. "Yes," she managed, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She stood, smoothing her skirt with one hand while distributing documents with the other. As you can see from the projections on page 3, the presentation was her element. Numbers, facts, analyses. These were safe territory. But every time she glanced in Andrew's direction, she caught him watching her with an expression that made her lose her train of thought. After the meeting, board members filed out discussing lunch reservations and golf games. Madeline gathered her materials, hyper-aware that Andrew hadn't moved from his seat at the head of the table. "Excellent presentation, Ms. Pierce," he said. Once they were alone, his voice carrying that slight roughness that made her stomach flip. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood." She kept her tone professional, even as her pulse quickened. "Will there be anything else?" He stood, adjusting his cuffs, a gesture she'd seen 1,000 times but now seemed charged with meaning. "Have dinner with me tonight." It wasn't a question. Madeline's fingers tightened on her portfolio. "I don't think that would be appropriate." "Appropriate?" He moved closer, his cologne surrounding her. Was that message appropriate, Madeline? The use of her first name again made her shiver. That was a mistake. Was it? His voice dropped lower. Look me in the eyes and tell me you didn't mean every word. Before she could respond, the conference room door opened. Richard Morrison strode in, his calculating gaze taking in their proximity before they could step apart. Andrew, just the man I wanted to see, Richard said, his smile not reaching his eyes. Oh, and Ms. Pierce. Excellent work on the merger analysis. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Madeline seized the opportunity to escape, gathering her remaining papers. If you'll excuse me, gentlemen. She felt Andrew's eyes on her as she left, but didn't dare look back. Her phone buzzed insistently as she reached her office. 3 missed calls from Melissa, and a string of texts. Mads, you can't drop a bomb like that and ghost me. I'm coming over at lunch. This requires emergency sushi and all the details. Also, I may have seen your hot boss, TM, looking particularly broody this morning. Coincidence? I think not. Madeline sank into her chair, finally allowing herself to process the morning's events. The message. Andrew's response. That moment in her office when he'd been close enough to kiss. A knock on her doorframe made her jump. Working through. Lunch again? Melissa Carter stood there, takeout bags in hand, her curly brown hair wild from the autumn wind. Not today, honey, we need to talk. Mel, I can't. Nope, no excuses. Melissa breezed in, dropping the food on Madeline's desk and closing the door. Spill. What happened this morning? Madeline buried her face in her hands. I did something incredibly stupid. Those are my favorite kind of stories. Melissa pulled up a chair, unpacking containers of sushi. Details. Now. Just as Madeline opened her mouth to confess, her computer pinged with a new email. From Andrew. Subject, dinner. My car will be waiting outside at 8. This isn't a request. Oh my God. Melissa had read the email over her shoulder. Mads, what exactly did you do? I sent him a text, Madeline whispered, face burning. The text that was meant for you about wanting to grab his tie and... You didn't. Melissa's squeal could probably be heard 3 floors down. The thirst message, to Andrew, actual billionaire Blackwood. It was an accident. Honey, that's not an accident, that's fate. Melissa popped a piece of sushi in her mouth, grinning. And clearly he's into it. Look at that email. This isn't a request. That's hot. It's complicated, Madeline protested. He's my boss. There are rules, protocols. There are always rules. But sometimes the heart wants what it wants. Melissa leaned forward, suddenly serious. When was the last time you let yourself want something, Mads? Really want it? The question hit home. Madeline had always been the responsible one, the planner, the perfectionist. Every decision carefully calculated, every risk meticulously weighed. I can't risk my career, she said softly. Everything I've worked for. Maybe the real risk is never taking one at all. Before Madeline could respond, movement outside her office caught her eye. A tall, elegant woman was striding through the office like she owned it, turning heads with every click of her designer heels. Who is that? Melissa whispered, following her gaze. The woman stopped at Andrew's office, greeting him with a familiar kiss on the cheek. Madeline's stomach dropped as she recognized her from the society pages and charity gala photos. Charlotte Elizabeth Hastings, she said, the name tasting bitter. Andrew's ex-fiancée. Melissa's eyes widened. Ex? As in they broke, up 6 months ago, and apparently she's back. They watched as Charlotte followed Andrew into his office, her hand lingering on his arm. Through the glass walls, Madeline could see them talking intimately, Charlotte's perfect red lips curved in a smile that spoke of shared history. Well, Melissa said, squeezing Madeline's hand, this just got interesting. Madeline's phone buzzed, again with another email from Andrew, 8 p.m. Don't make me come find you. She stared at the screen, then at Charlotte's elegant figure in Andrew's office, feeling like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. Playing it safe had always been her strategy, but now she had to decide. Step back into her carefully ordered world, or take the leap into unknown territory. The answer, she realized, had been decided the moment she hit send on that message. At precisely 7:58 p.m., Madeline stood in the marble lobby of Blackwood Tower, her heart threatening to burst from her chest. She'd changed after work into a black cocktail dress that hugged her curves without being overtly sensual, a balance between elegance and allure that had taken 3 FaceTime calls with Melissa to perfect. You're actually going through with this, she whispered to herself, catching her reflection in the polished brass elevator doors. Her blonde waves fell softly around her shoulders, and the subtle shimmer of her makeup caught the lobby's warm lighting. A sleek black Aston Martin pulled up outside, its dark windows reflecting the city lights. The driver stepped out, opening the rear door, and there was Andrew, devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit she hadn't seen him wearing earlier. He'd changed too. "Ms. Pierce," he said, his voice carrying that hint of gravel that made her pulse race. "You look stunning." She slid into the leather seat beside him, immediately enveloped by his cologne and the intimate space of the luxury car. "This is crazy," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "Is it?" He studied her profile as the car pulled away from the curb. "Or is it exactly what we've both been waiting for?" The city lights played across his features as they drove, highlighting the strong line of his jaw, the intensity in his green eyes. Madeline forced herself to look away out at the passing streets of Manhattan. "Charlotte seemed happy to see you today," she said before she could stop herself. The words hung between them, loaded with unspoken questions. Andrew's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Charlotte has a habit of appearing when it's most convenient for her." "She's beautiful," Madeline continued, hating how small her voice sounded. "Sophisticated. The kind of woman who belongs in your world." The car stopped at a red light and Andrew turned to face her fully. "Is that what you think this is about? Finding someone who belongs in my world? Isn't it?" She met his gaze, vulnerability warring with determination in her blue-gray eyes. "I'm your assistant, Andrew. I organize your meetings, manage your schedule, handle your correspondence. I'm not—" "You're not what?" His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "Not the woman who drives me crazy every day with her intelligence, her dedication, the way she bites her lip when she's concentrating." Heat flooded Madeline's cheeks. The car moved again, turning onto a quiet street away from the main thoroughfare. "Where are we going?" she asked, desperate to change the subject. "Somewhere private," he replied, "where we can talk without the whole world watching." The car pulled up to a restored brownstone in the West Village, its facade elegant and discreet. No restaurant, no public venue. This was his home, Madeline realized with a start. "I thought we were having dinner," she said as the driver opened their door. Andrew's hand found the small of her back as they climbed the steps. "We are, but I thought you might prefer somewhere we could speak freely." The interior of his home was a surprise, warm and masculine, with leather furniture and dark wood, but also filled with books and vinyl records. Not the stark, modern space she'd imagined. "Wine?" he asked, leading her into a spacious kitchen that looked out over a small private garden. "Please." She needed something to steady her nerves. He moved with easy confidence through the kitchen, opening a bottle of red and setting out 2 glasses. His suit jacket was off now, his sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. The domestic intimacy of the moment made her heart ache. "That message this morning," he said, handing her a glass. "It wasn't the first time you'd thought about it, was it?" Madeline took a long sip of wine before answering. "No," she admitted. "It wasn't." "Tell me." He stepped closer until she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Tell me what you think about Madeline." The wine, the intimate setting, the way he said her name, it all conspired to lower her defenses. "I think about the way you look at me during meetings, how your voice changes when we're alone late at night in the office. The times you've stood so close I could feel your breath on my skin." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek. "What else?" "I think about how it would feel to—" She swallowed hard. "To cross that line, to stop pretending I don't want you." "Like this?" His lips brushed hers, soft and questioning at first, then with growing intensity as she responded. Madeline's wine glass clinked against the counter as she set it down, her hands coming up to grip his shirt. The kiss deepened, months of suppressed desire exploding into reality. His hands tangled in her hair as he backed her against the kitchen island, lifting her slightly so she sat on its edge. Her dress rode up her thighs as she parted her legs to accommodate him, and his groan against her mouth sent fire through her veins. "Madeline," he breathed against her neck, trailing kisses down to her collarbone. "You have no idea how long I've wanted this." A phone buzzed insistently, the sound cutting through their passion like a bucket of cold water. Andrew pulled back slightly, his breathing ragged, to check the screen. The flash of emotion across his face told her everything she needed to know. "Charlotte?" He set the phone face down without answering. It doesn't matter. But it did matter. Reality was crashing back in. He was her boss, Charlotte was back in his life, and this could destroy everything she'd worked for. "I should go," she said softly, sliding off the counter and straightening her dress. "Madeline, wait." He caught her hand. "Don't run from this." "From what exactly?" She forced herself to meet his eyes. "From being your secret, your mistake, the office scandal waiting to happen? Is that what you think this is? I think—" She took a shaky breath. "I think we both know this can't happen. You're the CEO, I'm your assistant, and Charlotte is my past," he said firmly. "You're—" The phone buzzed again, more insistent this time. Through the window, Madeline could see the city lights twinkling like stars, reminding her of the real world waiting beyond these walls. "I'm your employee," she finished for him, "and this was a mistake." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. Andrew called after her, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Outside, the night air hit her flushed skin like a slap. She could still feel his lips on hers, his hands in her hair. Tears threatened to fall as she hurried down the steps, flagging down a passing taxi. Her phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. "How's the date going? Details." Madeline leaned back against the taxi's seat, touching her fingers to her lips where she could still taste him. How could she explain that she'd just had everything she wanted in her grasp and walked away from it? The taxi turned onto Broadway, carrying her back to her safe, ordered life. But as the city blurred past her window, Madeline knew nothing would ever be the same again. Morning light filtered through the windows of Madeline's Upper East Side apartment as she stared at her reflection, applying concealer to hide the dark circles under her eyes. Sleep had been elusive, her mind replaying every moment of last night. The warmth of Andrew's kitchen, the taste of expensive wine, the feel of his lips against hers. Her phone lit up with another message from him, joining the dozen others she'd received since leaving his brownstone. "We need to talk about this. Don't shut me out, Madeline. What happened last night wasn't a mistake." She'd read each one multiple times but hadn't responded. What could she say? That she could still feel the ghost of his touch? That running away had taken every ounce of willpower she possessed? "Get it together, Pierce," she muttered, smoothing down her forest green sheath dress. She'd chosen it deliberately, professional, sophisticated, armor against the day ahead. The elevator doors opened onto the 47th floor, and immediately Madeline sensed something was different. Conversations hushed as she passed, replaced by meaningful glances and whispered words. Her stomach dropped when she saw Charlotte Hastings perched on the edge of her desk, scrolling through her phone with manicured fingers. "Madeline, darling." Charlotte's smile was razor sharp. "I hope you don't mind. I was waiting for Andrew and thought we could have a little chat." Madeline's spine stiffened. "Of course, Ms. Hastings, how can I help you?" Charlotte stood, her designer dress emphasizing every perfect curve. "I wanted to thank you, actually. You've taken such good care of Andrew while I was away." Her voice dripped honey-coated venom. "But I'm back now, so you can return to your regular duties." Before Madeline could respond, Andrew's voice cut through the tension. "Charlotte, my office now." They both turned to see him standing in his doorway, his expression thunderous. Charlotte's smile never wavered as she sashayed past him, but Madeline caught the flash of calculation in her blue eyes. "Ms. Pierce," Andrew said, his formal tone at odds with the intensity of his gaze. "The Morrison contract needs review. Bring it to my office in 10 minutes." Madeline nodded, unable to trust her voice. She watched them disappear into his office, the glass walls offering a painful view of their conversation. Charlotte moved with the confidence of someone who knew all your secrets, gesturing animatedly while Andrew ran a hand through his hair, his tell when he was frustrated. Her computer pinged with an incoming email from Richard Morrison. Subject: urgent, merger concerns. Ms. Pierce, disturbing rumors have reached the board regarding potential conflicts of interest within senior management. Given your position, I trust you understand the gravity of maintaining professional boundaries. Perhaps we should discuss this over coffee, RM. The implied threat was clear. Madeline's hands shook as she minimized the email, just as Melissa appeared at her desk clutching 2 large coffees. Okay, spill, Melissa demanded, setting down the drinks. Why did I get a 3 a.m. text saying I messed up and then radio silence? And why is Ice Queen Barbie in Andrew's office looking like she's planning a hostile takeover? Because she is, Madeline said quietly. Taking over, I mean. She's making it clear that she's back in Andrew's life. After what happened last night? No way. Melissa leaned closer, lowering her voice. What exactly did happen last night? Heat flooded Madeline's cheeks as memories flooded back. Andrew's hands in her hair, his body pressing her against the kitchen counter, the way he'd whispered her name. We kissed, she admitted. And then I ran away. You what? Melissa's voice rose, drawing curious glances. She continued in a fierce whisper. Please tell me you're joking. Hot CEO finally makes a move and you ran? What choice did I have? He's my boss, Mel. And now? She gestured at her screen, showing Melissa the email from Richard. That sneaky bastard, Melissa muttered. He's trying to use this against Andrew, isn't he? The merger would give Morrison enough board votes to challenge Andrew's position, Madeline finished, and now he has ammunition. Movement in Andrew's office caught their attention. Charlotte was leaving, but she paused in the doorway to press a lingering kiss to Andrew's cheek. Her eyes met Madeline's across the office, triumph glittering in their blue depths. Oh, that bitch is good, Melissa breathed. She's marking her territory. Ms. Pierce, Andrew's voice carried across the office. The Morrison contract? Madeline gathered the files with trembling hands. Melissa squeezed her arm. Remember who you are, Mads. Don't let them see you sweat. The walk to Andrew's office felt like crossing a minefield. Every eye in the office followed her progress, wondering, speculating. She closed the door behind her, hyper-aware of the glass walls exposing them to curious onlookers. Lock it, Andrew said quietly. She hesitated, her hand on the handle. I don't think that's appropriate. Madeline. The way he said her name made her breath catch. Please. She turned the lock, then faced him, maintaining a safe distance between them. The Morrison contract needs your signature on pages. Stop. He moved around his desk, closing the distance she'd tried to establish. We need to talk about last night. There's nothing to talk about, she said, proud of how steady her voice remained. It was a mistake, one that won't happen again. A mistake? His green eyes blazed. Is that what you felt when I kissed you? When you wrapped your legs around me? When you... Stop. Now it was her turn to cut him off. Charlotte made it very clear this morning that Charlotte doesn't get to make anything clear, he growled. She showed up at my house last night after you left, talking about reconciliation, about how good we were together. The revelation hit Madeline like a physical blow. And nothing. I sent her away. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. But she's not going to give up easily. And now Morrison's involved. I got his email, Madeline admitted. He's using this to threaten the merger. Andrew's jaw clenched. Morrison's always wanted my position. And Charlotte, she's always wanted the power that comes with being a CEO's wife. They're working together. All the more reason to stop this now, Madeline said, even as her body betrayed her by swaying toward his. Your position, the company. His hand caught her chin, tilting her face up to his. Do you know what I thought about all night? Not the company, not Charlotte, not Morrison, you, the way you taste. The sounds you made when I kissed you. The way you feel in my arms. Andrew, she breathed, her resolve crumbling. The office phone buzzed, making them jump apart. His secretary's voice crackled through the speaker. Mr. Blackwood, the board members are gathering for the emergency meeting. Ms. Hastings called it this morning. Reality crashed back in. Madeline stepped back, straightening her dress. You should go, they're waiting. This isn't over, he said, his voice low and intense. Whatever game Charlotte and Morrison are playing, I won't let them win. And I won't let you go, Madeline. Not like this. She fled his office, feeling the weight of stares following her. At her desk, another email waited. Subject, dinner tonight. Charlotte Hastings requests the pleasure of your company for dinner. 8 p.m., Le Bernardin. Let's discuss your future with the company, shall we? CH. Madeline stared at the screen, her heart pounding. The battle lines were being drawn, and she was caught in the crossfire. Tonight would change everything. She just wasn't sure if she was ready for what that change might bring. Le Bernardin's elegant interior seemed to mock Madeline as she followed the maitre d' to a secluded corner table. Charlotte Hastings sat, like a queen holding court, a glass of champagne already in hand. Her midnight blue dress probably cost more than Madeline's monthly rent. Right on time, Charlotte smiled, gesturing to the empty chair. I appreciate punctuality in an employee. Madeline smoothed her black cocktail dress, another emergency styling session with Melissa, and sat down. Thank you for the invitation, Ms. Hastings. Please, call me Charlotte, she signaled the waiter. Champagne for my guest. We're celebrating. What exactly are we celebrating? Madeline asked, her voice carefully neutral. Charlotte's perfect red lips curved. My return to New York, of course, and to Andrew's life. She leaned forward, lowering her voice conspiratorially. I should thank you, actually. You've kept him entertained while I was away. The champagne arrived, but Madeline didn't touch. Till, I think there's been a misunderstanding about my relationship with Mr. Blackwood. Oh, darling. Charlotte's laugh was musical but sharp. Let's not play games. I know about last night, about the kiss, about how you ran away. She took, a delicate sip of champagne. Did you really think someone like you could keep someone like him? The word stung, but Madeline refused to show it. My professional relationship with Mr. Blackwood is exactly that. Professional. Of course it is. Because you're smart enough to know how this ends. Charlotte's blue eyes turned glacial. Andrew needs someone who understands his world, the social obligations, the board politics, the family expectations. He needs you? Madeline couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Precisely. Charlotte smiled. And you, my dear, need to decide where your loyalties lie. Richard Morrison is very interested in acquiring new talent for his team. After the merger, he'll need a capable executive assistant. The implied threat hung in the air between them. Madeline's hands clenched in her lap. Are you offering me a job, Ms. Hastings, or threatening my current one? I'm offering you an opportunity. Charlotte's voice hardened. Because the alternative is watching your career implode when the board learns about your indiscretions with the CEO. There's nothing to learn about. No? Charlotte pulled out her phone, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a security camera image from Andrew's building, showing Madeline entering with him the night before. Amazing what connections with building management can get you, isn't it? Madeline's blood ran cold, but years of boardroom negotiations had taught her to keep her expression neutral. One business dinner hardly constitutes an indiscretion. Perhaps, but rumors are such tricky things, aren't they? Especially when Richard Morrison is so eager to present his concerns about corporate governance to the board. Charlotte's smile turned predatory. Of course, if you were to accept a position with Morrison's team before the merger, well, that would paint everything in a different light, wouldn't it? The waiter approached with menus, but Charlotte waved him away. We won't be staying for dinner. I think Ms. Pierce needs time to consider her options. Madeline stood, her legs steady despite her internal trembling. "You're right about one thing, Miss Hastings. I do need to consider my options. All of them." She turned to leave, but Charlotte's voice stopped her. "Oh, and Madeline? I'm having dinner with Andrew tomorrow night to discuss our future. I thought you should know." The walk to the restaurant's entrance felt endless. Outside, the October air hit her face like a slap, and she gulped it gratefully. Her phone buzzed, a text from Andrew. "Where are you? We need to talk about the board meeting." Before she could respond, another message appeared. "I miss you." Tears threatened to blur her vision. She flagged down a taxi, giving the driver an address without thinking. 20 minutes later, she found herself outside Andrew's brownstone. He opened the door before she could knock, as if he'd been waiting. His tie was loose, shirt sleeves rolled up, hair slightly mussed, the look that always made her heart race. "Madeline?" His eyes took in her dinner dress, her barely contained emotions. "What's wrong?" "Charlotte has proof," she said, her voice breaking. "Security footage of last night. She's working with Morrison to use it against you in the merger." Andrew pulled her inside, closing the door. "Tell me everything." She did, the words pouring out. Charlotte's threats, Morrison's offer, the implied ultimatum. Andrew's expression darkened with each detail. "She's desperate," he said finally. "They both are. The merger isn't going as smoothly as Morrison hoped, and Charlotte..." He ran a hand through his hair. "She's always needed to be in control. She said you're having dinner tomorrow to discuss your future." "Did she?" His laugh was bitter. "She's certainly been busy making plans." "Maybe she's right," Madeline whispered, voicing her deepest fear. "Maybe you do need someone who understands your world. The social obligations, the expectations." "Stop." He stepped closer, his hands coming up to frame her face. "You think I care about any of that? Do you know what I see when I look at you?" She shook her head, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "I see the woman who challenges me in every board meeting, who stays late helping me perfect presentations, who knows exactly when I need coffee or silence or someone to tell me I'm being an idiot." His thumbs brushed away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "I see the woman I've been falling in love with for months." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Madeline's heart thundered in her chest. "Andrew, I know you're scared," he said softly, "of losing your career, your reputation. But I'm not letting you go. Not for Charlotte, not for Morrison, not for anyone." "It's not that simple," she protested, even as she leaned into his touch. "The board. To hell with the board." His voice was fierce. "I built this company from nothing. I've spent years playing by their rules, being who they wanted me to be. But not anymore." He kissed her then, and it was different from their first kiss. Not desperate passion, but something deeper. A promise. Madeline melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt as if he could anchor her in the storm. When they finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "What are we going to do?" "We're going to fight," he said simply. "But first," he tilted her chin up, his green eyes intense, "I need to know if you're with me, really with me, because once we take this stand, there's no going back." Madeline thought of Charlotte's smug smile, of Morrison's threats, of all the carefully constructed walls she'd built around her heart. And then she thought of this man, brilliant, complicated, impossible, who was offering to risk everything for her. "I'm with you," she whispered, and felt him exhale shakily against her hair. "Whatever comes next, I'm with you." Outside, the city hummed with its usual energy, unaware that in a quiet brownstone in the West Village, two people had just declared war on the carefully ordered world of Manhattan's elite. Tomorrow would bring battles and consequences, but for now, in the warmth of Andrew's arms, Madeline finally stopped running. Madeline woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the scent of freshly brewed coffee. For a moment, she was disoriented. This wasn't her apartment, wasn't her bed. Then she felt Andrew's warm hand on her back, and memories of last night flooded back. "Good morning," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. She was still wearing her cocktail, dress now hopelessly wrinkled from falling asleep on his couch during their late-night strategy session. "What time is it?" she asked, sitting up and attempting to smooth her blonde waves. "Early. We have time." He handed her a steaming mug of coffee, already fixed exactly how she liked it. 1 splash of cream, no sugar. Of course he'd noticed how she took her coffee after all those late nights at the office. "We need a plan," she said, taking a grateful sip. "Charlotte won't wait long to make her move." Andrew's expression hardened. "No, she won't, especially not after I canceled dinner with her tonight." "You're really not going?" He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "I'm done playing their games, Madeline. But we need to be smart about this." A knock at the front door made them both freeze. Andrew moved silently to the window, then relaxed. "It's just Melissa." Sure enough, Melissa's voice called through the door. "Mads, I brought reinforcements and a change of clothes. Because, girl, I know you're still in that cocktail dress." Madeline opened the door to find her best friend laden with garment bags and what looked like half a Starbucks store. "How did you know I was here?" "Please." Melissa breezed past her, setting everything down on the kitchen island. "Where else? Would you go after that showdown with the Ice Queen? Also, you shared your location with me last night, remember? Safety first." She pulled out a sleek white sheath dress and matching blazer. "Now let's get you looking like the powerhouse you are. We have battles to win." An hour later, Madeline stood in Andrew's master bathroom, transformed. The white ensemble was perfect, professional but powerful. Melissa had worked magic with her makeup, making her look fresh and polished despite the emotional night. "The board meeting's at 10, Andrew said when she emerged. He'd changed into a sharp navy suit that made his green eyes even more striking. "Ready to face them?" "Together," she said firmly. The ride to Blackwood Tower was silent, both lost in thought. In the elevator, Andrew squeezed her hand once before they separated. She to her office, he to his. Melissa was already at Madeline's desk, typing furiously on her laptop. As the company's head of digital communications, she had access to everything they needed. "You won't believe what I found," she said without looking up. "Remember that charity gala last spring where Charlotte supposedly raised millions? The numbers don't add up. And guess who was on the financial committee with her?" "Richard Morrison," Madeline breathed, looking at the documents Melissa had pulled up. "Bingo. They've been working together for months, way before this merger was even announced. And there's more." Melissa lowered her voice. "That security footage Charlotte showed you? I did some digging. The building management company was recently acquired by Morrison Holdings." Andrew finished from behind them. They turned to find him holding a stack of papers, his expression grim. "Just like the real estate firm that's been quietly buying up shares of Blackwood Investments through shell companies. He's planning a hostile takeover," Madeline realized. "The merger is just a smokescreen." "And Charlotte's his inside track to the board," Melissa added. "She still has connections from when she was with Andrew." Before they could discuss further, Charlotte herself swept onto the floor, wearing a blood-red power suit and a triumphant smile. "Andrew, darling, ready for the board meeting? I have some fascinating items to add to the agenda." Andrew's face was impassive. "Actually, Charlotte, I think you'll find the agenda quite different from what you expected." She faltered slightly. "What do you mean?" "He means," Richard Morrison's voice cut in as he stepped off the elevator, "that someone has been leaking confidential merger documents to the press. The morning papers are quite interesting." Madeline's heart stopped until she saw Andrew's slight smile. He handed her the Wall Street Journal where the headline read, "Morrison Holdings under investigation for financial irregularities in charity dealings." Charlotte's face went white. "You didn't?" "No," Andrew said calmly. "But someone did. Someone who apparently had access to all the financial records from last spring's gala. Fascinating reading, really." Morrison's face had turned an ugly shade of red. "This is absurd. The merger agreement clearly states The merger agreement is void, Andrew cut in. Given the evidence of undisclosed share purchases through shell companies, the SEC is very interested in that, by the way. Charlotte turned to Madeline, her eyes blazing. You did this. No, Ms. Hastings. Madeline stood, drawing strength from Andrew's presence beside her. You did this. When you tried to threaten me, manipulate Andrew, and help Morrison steal this company, we just exposed it. The board will never, Charlotte started, but Andrew cut her off. The board is waiting, actually, for a very different presentation than the one you planned. He gestured to the conference room where board members were indeed gathering. Shall we? What followed was the most extraordinary board meeting of Madeline's career. With surgical precision, she and Andrew laid out the evidence. Morrison's secret share purchases, Charlotte's financial manipulations, the planned hostile takeover disguised as a merger. This company was built on integrity, Andrew told the stunned board members. Something Ms. Hastings and Mr. Morrison seem to have forgotten. And your own integrity? Charlotte snapped. Sleeping with your assistant? I have never been anything but professional with Ms. Pierce, Andrew said calmly. Unlike you, Charlotte, I don't need to manipulate people or manufacture evidence to get what I want. The security footage, she started, shows exactly what happened, Madeline interrupted. A business dinner to discuss the Morrison contract, which, given today's revelations, was clearly a wise decision. The board's verdict was unanimous. The merger was canceled. Morrison was referred to the SEC for investigation, and Charlotte was escorted from the building by security, her perfect composure finally cracking. Hours later, after the lawyers had gone and the press statements had been issued, Madeline found Andrew in his office, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. Hey, she said softly. He turned, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. We did it. We did. She moved to stand beside him, their shoulders touching. But you know this isn't over. The press will start digging, asking questions about us. Let them. He pulled her into his arms. I meant what I said last night, Madeline. I'm done hiding how I feel about you. Even if it complicates things. Everything worth having comes with complications. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. The question is, are you ready for them? Madeline thought about the morning's events. The fear, the triumph, the exhilarating feeling of fighting beside this man instead of running from her feelings. Yes, she said, pulling him down for a kiss that felt like a beginning. I'm ready for everything. Outside his office, Melissa was fending off reporters with her usual flair, while shell-shocked board members tried to process the day's events. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles to fight. But for now, in the golden light of sunset streaming through the windows of Blackwood Tower, Madeline and Andrew held each other, knowing they'd chosen the harder path, and neither of them would have it any other way. Blackwood CEO and assistant, love or corporate scandal. Morrison holding stock plummets amid SEC investigation. Power couple rocks Wall Street, the real story. The headlines screamed from every newsstand in Manhattan. Madeline scrolled through them on her tablet while curled up in Andrew's bed, the Sunday morning sun warming her bare shoulders. A week had passed since the dramatic board meeting, and the media frenzy showed no signs of dying down. Stop reading those, Andrew murmured, pulling her closer and pressing a kiss to her temple. They're just trying to sell papers. The Wall Street Journal called me an ambitious social climber, she said, unable to keep the hurt from her voice. And page 6 suggests I've been sleeping my way to the top since day 1. Andrew took the tablet from her hands, setting it aside. And anyone who knows you knows that's ridiculous. You're the most capable, honest person I've ever met. The board doesn't seem to think so. She turned to face him, taking in his sleep-tousled hair and concerned green eyes. Did you see the email from Henderson? Suggesting you transfer to another department, yes? His jaw tightened. I told him where he could put that suggestion. Maybe he has a point. Madeline sat up, pulling the sheet around her. The appearance of impropriety. Stop. Andrew caught her hand. We've done nothing wrong. You earned every promotion, every accolade. I won't let them erase your achievements. Because of us." Before she could respond, both their phones buzzed simultaneously. Melissa had sent them a link to a breaking news story. Charlotte Hastings speaks out. The truth about Andrew Blackwood. "Don't read it," Andrew said, but Madeline was already clicking the link. The article was vicious. Charlotte painted herself as the wronged fiancée, claiming Andrew had been carrying on with Madeline throughout their engagement. She described private moments that had never happened, meetings that had never taken place. "She's lying," Andrew said, his voice tight with anger. "You know she's lying." "Of course I know." Madeline got up, pacing the bedroom. "But it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what people believe." Her phone rang. Melissa. "Tell me you've seen it," her friend said without preamble. "I'm already drafting a response, but we need to get ahead of this. The morning shows are calling for interviews." "No interviews," Andrew called from the bed. "He's right," Madeline said. "We're not playing their game." "Fine, but you need to see this too." Melissa sent another link, this time to social media, where Team Madeline was trending. Young professional women were sharing their own stories of workplace relationships, of fighting to be taken seriously, of refusing to apologize for finding love. "See?" Melissa's voice softened. "Not everyone's buying Charlotte's lies. Some people actually see the real story here." After hanging up, Madeline stood at Andrew's bedroom window, looking out over his private garden. The autumn leaves were turning golden, creating a peaceful contrast to the chaos of their lives. "What are you thinking?" Andrew asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "I'm thinking about the first time I saw you," she admitted. "In the elevator, my first day. You were on your phone, completely focused on some crisis, but you still held the door for me when I was running late." "I remember," he said softly. "You thanked me and immediately started organizing papers you'd dropped. I thought, now there's someone who doesn't waste time feeling flustered." She turned in his arms. "Did you know then that we'd end up here?" "I knew you were different." He traced her cheek with his thumb. "I knew you saw me. Not just the CEO, not the billionaire, but me." "Just like you saw me," she whispered. "The real me, not just the assistant." Their moment was interrupted by another phone call, this time Andrew's private line. His expression darkened as he answered. "Mother," he said, making Madeline's heart skip. "Yes, I've seen the articles. No, Charlotte is lying, and because I'm in love with someone else." He said it so naturally, so firmly, that tears pricked Madeline's eyes. She could hear the sharp voice of Regina Blackwood on the other end, demanding explanations. "Actually," Andrew continued, his eyes locked on Madeline's, "I'd like you to meet her. Dinner tonight?" "Yes, at the house." "No, Mother, this isn't a discussion. She's part of my life now." After hanging up, he ran a hand through his hair, that nervous gesture she'd grown to love. "I should have asked first. You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Madeline squared her shoulders. "If we're doing this, we're doing it right. No hiding, no apologizing." His smile was worth every headline, every whispered comment, every disapproving glare. "Have I told you today that I love you?" Not in the last hour." She stretched up to kiss him. "But we have more pressing concerns. Like, what does one wear to meet Regina Blackwood?" "Wear that green dress," he said immediately. "The one you had on when you destroyed Morrison in the board meeting. Mother appreciates a warrior." They spent the morning in domestic tranquility that felt both strange and perfectly natural. Andrew made breakfast while Madeline answered supportive messages from friends. They showered together, got dressed for the day, and tried to ignore the photographers that had stationed themselves outside his brownstone. Around noon, Melissa arrived with reinforcements, coffee, pastries, and a complete media strategy. "The narrative is shifting," she announced, spreading papers across Andrew's kitchen island. "Charlotte's interview backfired. People are calling her bitter and calculating. And these photos of you two at that charity event last month? Pure gold. You look like something out of a romance novel. Great, Madeline said dryly. That's exactly the professional image I was going for. Actually, Andrew said thoughtfully, maybe that's not a bad thing. Both women looked at him in surprise. Think about it, he continued. Everyone's going to tell this story somehow. Why not let them tell the true one? Two people who found each other despite the complications, who chose integrity over easy paths, who fought for what they believed in, together. It's a good narrative, Melissa agreed. Authentic, emotional, relatable. But what about the company? Madeline pressed. The board, the shareholders. The company will be fine. Andrew pulled her close. In fact, our stock is up since the Morrison scandal broke. Turns out investors appreciate leaders who stand up to corporate raiders and corrupt executives. Speaking of which, Melissa interjected, you might want to see this. She showed them another news alert. Richard Morrison steps down amid growing investigation. One down, Andrew murmured, kissing Madeline's temple. One to go, she finished, thinking of Charlotte's vendetta. As if on cue, another headline popped up. Hastings' family distances themselves from Charlotte's claims. Looks like Daddy Dearest didn't appreciate his daughter's public meltdown, Melissa said with satisfaction. The Hastings banking empire is all about discretion, after all. Madeline felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. Maybe they could weather this storm after all. Now, Melissa said, pulling out her iPad. About tonight's dinner with Regina Blackwood. I've prepared a complete dossier. Her favorite wines, topics to avoid, her history of charity work. Mel, Madeline laughed. I'm meeting his mother, not negotiating a merger. With Regina? Andrew raised an eyebrow. Trust me, a merger would be easier. But as Madeline looked around the kitchen, at Andrew's amused smile, Melissa's fierce protectiveness, the evidence of their shared life already taking shape in this space, she felt ready for whatever came next. Let Regina Blackwood judge. Her. Let Charlotte plot her revenge. Let the media spin their stories. She and Andrew had fought for this love, and they would keep fighting. Together. Okay, she said, taking the iPad from Melissa. Tell me everything about Regina Blackwood. But first, she pulled Andrew down for a kiss that made Melissa groan and cover her eyes. Just in case your mother murders me tonight. Not a chance, Andrew murmured against her lips. I didn't face down corporate raiders and vindictive exes just to let my mother scare you away. No, Madeline agreed, thinking of how far they'd come from that first misdirected text. You're stuck with me now, Mr. Blackwood. Promise, Miss Pierce? Their kiss was answer enough. Regina Blackwood's Upper East Side townhouse loomed before them, its limestone facade glowing in the evening light. Madeline gripped Andrew's hand as they climbed the steps, her emerald dress catching the last rays of sunset. Remember, Andrew murmured, she's going to try to intimidate you. It's how she tests people. Wonderful, Madeline whispered back, because I wasn't nervous enough already. The door opened before they could ring, revealing a silver-haired woman whose elegant posture and razor-sharp gaze immediately commanded attention. Regina Blackwood was a vision in tailored black silk, her only adornment a single strand of flawless pearls. Andrew. She kissed her son's cheek, then turned that penetrating gaze on Madeline. And this must be the woman who's been causing such a stir in the press. Mother, this is Madeline Pierce. Andrew's hand found the small of Madeline's back supporting her. The woman I love. Regina's perfectly arched eyebrow rose slightly. Indeed. Well, do come in. Harrison has opened a lovely Bordeaux that needs attention. The townhouse's interior was a testament to old money and impeccable taste. They followed Regina through rooms filled with antiques that probably belonged in museums, finally reaching a formal dining room where a distinguished-looking butler was pouring wine. Ms. Pierce, Regina said as they settled into their seats, I understand you graduated summa cum laude from Columbia. Yes, Mrs. Blackwood. And yet you chose to begin your career as an assistant. The words carried a subtle sting. Madeline lifted her chin. I chose to learn the business from the ground up, to understand every aspect of how successful companies operate. By sleeping with the CEO? The question was delivered with deadly precision. Mother, Andrew warned, but Madeline touched his arm. No, actually, she said calmly, by working harder than anyone else, by being the first one in and the last one out, by earning every promotion and commendation through merit alone. She met Regina's eyes directly. The fact that I fell in love with your son was unexpected, but I won't apologize for it. A long moment of silence followed. Then, surprisingly, Regina smiled. Well said, my dear. Now shall we discuss Charlotte's ridiculous interview? The tension in the room shifted. Andrew relaxed slightly beside Madeline as his mother continued. That girl always did have more ambition than sense, Regina said, sipping her wine. Though I must admit, she's created quite a mess for you both. We're handling it, Andrew replied. Are you? Regina's gaze was sharp, because from what I hear, the board is still unsettled. The board will adapt, Madeline said. Our focus is on running the company effectively, not managing their personal opinions. Regina studied her thoughtfully. You know, when Andrew's father died, everyone expected me to sell my shares and retire to Palm Beach like a proper widow. Her smile turned predatory. Instead, I bought more shares and took a seat on the board. I remember reading about that, Madeline said. The financial press called it a surprising power play. Men are always surprised when women refuse to follow their scripts. Regina set down her wine glass. Which brings me to my point. The annual shareholders gala is next week. Every major investor, board member, and financial reporter in New York will be there. We've decided to attend together, Andrew said firmly. No hiding. Good. Regina's approval seemed to surprise them both. Because I've arranged for you to open the evening, together. Madeline nearly choked on her wine. I'm sorry, what? The press wants a story? Regina continued. Give them one. A brilliant young executive and the CEO who recognized not just her talent, but her worth as an equal. A modern partnership that strengthens the company rather than compromises it. Mother, Andrew started, but Regina held up a hand. Charlotte is playing the wounded ex-fiancé card? Fine. Show everyone the real story, let them see what I see. Two people who choose principle over expedience, truth over convenience. She fixed Madeline with that penetrating stare again. Unless you're not up for it. Madeline straightened in her chair. I can handle it. Good. Regina actually smiled. Because there's something else you should know. Harrison? The butler appeared with a folder, which Regina opened to reveal documents bearing the Blackwood Investments letterhead. The board isn't just unsettled about your relationship, she said. They're planning to vote on a new corporate structure. Next month. One that would significantly reduce the CEO's autonomy. Andrew's hand tightened on his wine glass. Morrison's allies? Some, Regina agreed, but others are simply traditional. They see your relationship as a sign that you're losing focus. That's ridiculous, Madeline protested. The company's performance has never been stronger. Facts don't always matter as much as perception, my dear. Regina's voice was almost gentle. Which is why the gala is so important. It's your chance to change the narrative. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of strategic discussion. By the time they left, Madeline's head was spinning with plans and possibilities. Well, Andrew said as they settled into the back of his car. That was intense, terrifying, surprisingly helpful. He laughed, pulling her close. All of the above. I've never seen my mother take to anyone so quickly. That was her taking to me? Madeline asked incredulously. She practically cross-examined me. Over the soup course. Trust me. He pressed a kiss to her temple. If she didn't like you, you'd know. Madeline closed her eyes, leaning into him. The gala's going to be a circus. Yes, he agreed. But we'll face it together. Unless... He hesitated. It's not too late to walk away, you know, from all of this. She sat up, meeting his gaze, in the dim car interior. Is that what you want? God, no. His hand cupped her face. I want forever with you, Madeline. I need to know you're sure. About all of it. The scrutiny, the pressure, my mother. Andrew James Blackwood, she said firmly. I love you. The rest is just details we'll figure out together. His kiss was fierce, full of promise and passion. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Move in with me. What? Move in with me, he repeated. I'm tired of pretending we're taking things slow for the press or the board or anyone else. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want your clothes next to mine, your coffee mug in my kitchen, your laugh filling every room. Madeline's heart felt too big for her chest. Your mother will have opinions about that too, you know. Let her. He kissed her again, softer this time. What do you say? She thought about her apartment, chosen for its convenient location to the office. About the life she'd built around being the perfect executive assistant. About how none of that seemed to matter anymore, not compared to this man and the future they could build together. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes to all of it. The city lights blurred past their window as the car wound through Manhattan streets. Somewhere out there, Charlotte was probably plotting her next move. The board was scheming. The press was spinning stories. But here, in the quiet darkness of the car, Madeline and Andrew held each other, knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it as they'd faced everything else. Together. And somehow, that made all the difference. The evening before the shareholders' gala, Madeline stood, in what was now their closet, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and garment bags. Moving in with Andrew had been a whirlwind of logistics and emotions, punctuated by paparazzi trying to catch glimpses of her carrying boxes into his brownstone. You're overthinking it, Melissa said from her perch on a vintage leather armchair, watching Madeline sort through dresses. The blue Valentino is perfect for tomorrow. Nothing about tomorrow is perfect, Madeline muttered, running her fingers over the silk gown in question. The board vote is in 3 days. Half the financial press will be there, and Charlotte can't touch you anymore. Melissa stood, taking the dress from Madeline's hands. You're stronger than her. You and Andrew both. As if summoned by his name, Andrew appeared in the doorway, his tie loosened after a long day of preparations. Everything okay in here? Your girlfriend is spiraling, Melissa informed him cheerfully. I'm going to grab more wine. Once they were alone, Andrew pulled Madeline into his arms. Talk to me. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in his familiar scent. What if we're making a mistake? Going public like this? At the gala? Hey. He tilted her chin up. Look at me. What's really bothering you? Madeline stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. I saw the latest board projections. If they vote to restructure, they won't. You don't know that. She started pacing, her bare feet silent on the plush carpet. Your control of the company, everything you've built, can be rebuilt, he finished firmly. What can't be replaced is us. This. He caught her hand, pulling her to a stop. Do you know what I thought about all day in meetings? She shook her head. Coming home to you, seeing your things mixed with mine, knowing you'll be here every night. His green eyes were intense in the soft lighting. The company matters, yes, but you matter more. Before she could respond, both their phones buzzed simultaneously. Melissa's voice floated up from downstairs. Guys, you need to see this. They found her in the kitchen, tablet in hand, looking pale. Charlotte just went live on Instagram. The video was already going viral. Charlotte, perfectly coiffed and looking vulnerable in soft lighting, spoke directly to the camera. I've stayed quiet about the real reason Andrew and I ended our engagement. But with tomorrow's gala approaching, I feel I owe everyone the truth. The night Andrew ended things, I had just told him I was pregnant. Madeline's knees went weak. Andrew's face had turned to stone. I lost the baby soon after. Charlotte continued, tears glimmering. But the truth is, Andrew chose his assistant over his own child, over our family. I'm speaking out now because the shareholders deserve to know who's really running Blackwood Investments. The video ended. Silence filled the kitchen. She's lying, Andrew said quietly. We hadn't been together for months before I ended the engagement. She never told me about any pregnancy because there wasn't one. Can you prove it? Melissa asked, already typing furiously on her phone. The dates, Madeline said suddenly. Charlotte was in Paris that entire month. There are photos, society coverage, already on it. Melissa's fingers flew over the screen. And I'm calling in favors from every fashion editor and society columnist I know. If she was spotted drinking champagne at any events, Andrew's phone rang. Regina Blackwood. Mother, he answered, putting it on speaker. I assume you've seen it. Of course I have. Regina's voice was steel. Charlotte clearly doesn't remember that I sit on the board of the hospital she claims to have visited. Records can be verified. How long? Madeline asked. Give me an hour. And Andrew? Wear the navy Brioni tomorrow. Madeline, dear, the blue Valentino. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some calls to make. After she hung up, Melissa let out a low whistle. Your mother is terrifying. And amazing. She's right about one thing, Andrew said, pulling Madeline close. We stick to the plan, no matter what Charlotte throws at us. The gala, Madeline started, will go exactly as we planned. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. You and me showing everyone exactly who we are and what we stand for. Melissa's phone pinged. Twitter's already turning on Charlotte. People are pointing out inconsistencies in her story. Timelines don't match. Oh, and look who just posted. She showed them a tweet from a prominent fashion photographer. Interesting story from CH. Especially since I shot her dancing and drinking at the Vogue Paris party during the exact week she claims. Receipts available. More posts followed. Society columnists, event planners, even Charlotte's former assistant, all subtly, or not so subtly, poking holes in her story. Regina works fast, Andrew murmured. Remind me never to cross your mother, Melissa said, gathering her things. Okay, crisis managed for now. I'll see you both tomorrow. Try to actually sleep, okay? After she left, Madeline and Andrew stood in their kitchen, holding each other in comfortable silence. Move in with me, he said suddenly. I already am. She gestured at the boxes surrounding them. No. He pulled back to look at her. Marry me. Madeline's heart stopped. What? Marry me. His hands framed her face. Not because of Charlotte or the board or any of it. Marry me because I love you. Because I want to spend the rest of my life coming home to you. Fighting battles with you. Building something real with you. Andrew. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I know the timing is insane, he continued. I know tomorrow is huge and everything is complicated. But that's exactly why I'm asking now. Because when the world is chaos, you're my clarity. You're my home. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring, vintage platinum and diamonds, elegant and timeless. I've been carrying this for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. But every moment with you is perfect, even the hard ones. Madeline looked at the man she loved, powerful CEO, devoted son, and somehow still the person who held doors for strangers, and remembered how she took her coffee. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes. She laughed through her tears as he slid the ring onto her finger. 1,000 times yes. His kiss tasted of joy and promise and forever. When they finally broke apart, Madeline looked at her ring, then at their reflection in the window. Andrew in his rumpled suit, her in bare feet and casual clothes, both grinning like teenagers. Charlotte's going to lose her mind, she realized. Let her. Andrew pulled her close again. Tomorrow we face the world. But tonight is just for us, she finished, leading him upstairs to their bedroom. The city hummed outside their windows, and somewhere Charlotte was probably plotting her next move. Tomorrow would bring its own battles. But tonight, in the warmth of their bed, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the promise of their future, nothing else mattered except the love they'd fought so hard to claim. And maybe that was the greatest victory of all. The Metropolitan Museum's Great Hall glittered with New York's financial elite. Madeline stood before a gilded mirror in the private room Regina had arranged, the blue Valentino flowing like water around her curves. Her engagement ring caught the light, sending crystal reflections dancing across the walls. "Ready?" Melissa appeared behind her, resplendent in burgundy. "Everyone's waiting. How bad is it out there?" "Charlotte's holding court by the champagne fountain," Melissa reported. "But she looks rattled. The hospital records Regina leaked to the press this afternoon really did a number on her credibility." Madeline touched the delicate diamond pendant at her throat, a gift from Andrew this morning. "And the board members?" "Split between looking terrified of Regina and trying to pretend they never supported Morrison's takeover attempt." Melissa grinned. "Your future mother-in-law is quite the force of nature. Don't let her hear you call her that yet," Madeline warned. "We're waiting until after Andrew's speech to announce the engagement." Speaking of which, Melissa checked her phone. "It's time." The great hall fell silent as Andrew took the podium, commanding attention in his perfectly tailored Brioni suit. Madeline watched from the wings, her heart swelling with pride and love. "Good evening," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly through the space. "For those who've been reading the papers lately, you might expect me to stand here and defend my personal life, to justify my choices, to apologize for following my heart." He paused, his green eyes finding Madeline's. "I'm not going to do any of that. Instead, I want to talk about legacy, about integrity, about building something that lasts." The crowd shifted, uncertain where this was going. Charlotte's perfectly painted smile looked strained. "My father founded this company on a simple principle, that success comes not from taking the easy path but from choosing the right one, even when it's harder, even when it costs you something." Andrew's gaze swept the room. "Recently, some have questioned my judgment, my commitment to this company. They've suggested that finding love somehow makes me weaker, less focused, less worthy of the trust you've placed in me." He gestured, and Madeline moved to join him at the podium. Whispers rippled through the crowd as he took her hand. "The truth is, loving Madeline Pierce has made me stronger. Her brilliance challenges me to be better. Her integrity reminds me why we do what we do. And her courage," he smiled down at her, "her courage inspires me every day." Madeline stepped to the microphone, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "When I joined Blackwood Investments, I had one goal: to learn from the best, to understand how great companies are built and run. What I learned was something more valuable, that true success comes from being true to yourself." She faced the crowd directly. "Yes, Andrew and I fell in love. No, we didn't plan it. But we also didn't hide from it. We chose honesty over convenience, truth over easy lies, and that same commitment to integrity guides every decision we make for this company." The room was absolutely silent now, hundreds of eyes fixed on them. "The numbers speak for themselves," Andrew continued. "Our stock is up 30% since we exposed the attempted hostile takeover. Client confidence is at an all-time high. And our newest venture fund, launched last week, was oversubscribed in 6 hours." He turned to face the board members directly. "Tomorrow, you'll vote on the future of this company, on whether to maintain the vision that's brought us this far, or to change course out of fear and outdated thinking. I trust you'll make the right choice." Madeline spotted Charlotte moving toward the exit, her face tight with barely contained fury. But before she could reach the doors, Regina Blackwood stepped into her path. "Leaving so soon, dear?" Regina's voice carried just far enough. "Before the hospital board's full statement is released? How prudent of you." Charlotte fled, the click of her heels lost in the sudden surge of applause as Andrew finished his speech. He turned to Madeline and, without warning, dropped to one knee. The gasp from the crowd was audible. Cameras flashed. Melissa, who'd moved to the front row, was openly crying. I had a whole speech prepared, Andrew said, his voice thick with emotion, about how you've changed my life, about how I want to build a future with you. But the truth is simple. I love you, Madeline Grace Pierce, and I want everyone here to know it. He held up her left hand, where the vintage ring already sparkled. More gasps, followed by genuine applause and cheers. She already said yes, he announced to the crowd, standing to pull her into a kiss that definitely wasn't proper for a corporate event. But Madeline didn't care, not about propriety or protocols or anything except this moment. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and champagne. Board members who'd been skeptical yesterday now tripped over themselves to offer support. Financial reporters who'd questioned their relationship now asked for exclusive interviews about their modern corporate love story. Well played, Regina murmured, appearing beside them with perfect timing. Charlotte's statement retracting her claims will hit the press in an hour. Amazing what the threat of a lawsuit can accomplish. Mother, Andrew warned, but he was smiling. Oh, hush. Regina actually winked at Madeline. Let me enjoy my victory, too. Now, about the wedding. One battle at a time. Madeline laughed, but she squeezed her future mother-in-law's hand gratefully. Hours later, they stood on the steps of the Met, waiting for their car. The autumn night was crisp, stars somehow visible despite the city lights. Hey. Andrew pulled Madeline close, wrapping his jacket around her shoulders. You okay? She looked up at him. This man who'd changed everything, who'd fought for their love as fiercely as she had. More than okay. I'm happy. Really, truly happy. Even with all the chaos, the press, the board, my mother planning our wedding already. Especially with all that. She reached up to touch his face. Because it's real. It's messy and complicated and perfectly us. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you, future Mrs. Blackwood. I love you too. She smiled. But I'm keeping my name professionally. Someone has to maintain order in the office. Wouldn't have it any other way. Their car arrived, but for a moment they just stood there, holding each other under the stars. The city hummed around them, full of possibilities and challenges and adventures yet to come. But they'd face them all together. The CEO and his executive assistant, the power couple who'd shocked New York's elite, the man and woman who'd chosen love over everything else. And in the end, that was the greatest power move of all. Inside the Met, the party continued. Tomorrow would bring board votes and press statements and wedding plans. But tonight, in the back of their car heading home, Madeline and Andrew held each other close, knowing they'd won something far more precious than corporate control or social approval. They'd won their own story, written their own rules, and proved that sometimes the biggest risk brings the greatest reward. Take me home, Madeline whispered against Andrew's lips. Always, he promised. And they both knew it was just the beginning. The Wall Street Journal, Business and Finance, Blackwood Investments celebrates record year under dynamic leadership. Madeline smiled at the headline as she sipped her morning coffee on the brownstone's garden terrace. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the same promise of change that had filled that fateful night 1 year ago. Already reading the press coverage? Andrew's arm slipped around her waist as he pressed a kiss to her neck. Some things never change. The stock hit another record high yesterday, she said, leaning back against his chest. And the new female executive mentorship program is getting fantastic feedback. Of course it is, you designed it. He stole a sip of her coffee. Ready for tonight's gala? She turned to face him, straightening his tie, a gesture that still made them both smile, remembering that first impulsive text message. You mean, am I ready to celebrate our first anniversary while half of Wall Street watches? What could go wrong? Well, he pretended to consider. My mother has only invited 300 of her closest friends. Charlotte is safely in Europe with her new duke, and Melissa has threatened bodily harm to any reporter who tries to crash the private ceremony. Madeline laughed, thinking of her best friend, now Blackwood Investments head of communications and recently engaged herself. Melissa does take her maid of honor duties seriously. Speaking of duties, Andrew's hand drifted to her stomach, still flat but holding their secret. How are you feeling? Better. The morning sickness is finally easing up. They hadn't announced the pregnancy yet, wanting to keep this joy to themselves a little longer. Your mother knows, though. Mother knows everything, he agreed ruefully, but she's actually kept quiet about this one. She's too busy running the foundation. After the gala last year, Regina had thrown herself into expanding the Blackwood Foundation's work with professional women, turning it into a powerhouse of mentorship and opportunity. The sound of heels on stone made them turn. Melissa appeared, tablet in hand and looking characteristically frazzled despite her designer suit. There you are. The Times wants a comment on the leadership initiative. The caterer needs final numbers for tonight and... She paused, grinning. Charlotte's engagement to the Duke just hit page 6. Karma really is beautiful. Tell the Times I'll give them an exclusive on the initiative's expansion next week, Madeline said, shifting seamlessly into business mode. And add 2 to the catering count. Richard Morrison's replacement is bringing his wife. Already handled. Melissa's grin widened. Oh, and that other thing you asked about? It's all set. Andrew raised an eyebrow at his wife. What other thing? You'll see. Madeline kissed him quickly. I have a board meeting to run. Try not to miss me too much. Impossible, he called after her as she headed inside. Hours later, Madeline stood in their bedroom, putting the finishing touches on her makeup. The emerald gown she'd chosen highlighted the subtle curves of her early pregnancy, though only those who knew would notice. Almost ready? Andrew appeared in the doorway, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. The car's here, and you know how Mother feels about lateness. Just one thing first. She handed him an envelope. Happy anniversary. Inside was a copy of the latest board resolution, officially naming Madeline Pierce Blackwood as the new Chief Operating Officer of Blackwood Investments. The vote was unanimous, she said softly. Even Mother cried a little. Andrew pulled her into a fierce kiss, careful not to smudge her makeup. I am so proud of you, and so incredibly lucky. We both are. She touched his face tenderly. Now come on, Mr. Blackwood. We have a party to attend. Lead the way, Mrs. Pierce Blackwood. They descended the brownstone steps hand in hand, just as they had countless times over the past year. But tonight felt special, a celebration not just of their love, but of everything they'd built together. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying them toward their future. In the back seat, Madeline's head found its familiar place on Andrew's shoulder, their fingers intertwined. I love you, he murmured into her hair. More every day. I love you too. She smiled, thinking of all they'd overcome to reach this moment, always. The city lights blurred past their window, a symphony of possibility. They'd written their own love story, defied expectations, and proved that sometimes the greatest risk brings the most beautiful rewards. And this was just the beginning. The band. If you were in Madeline's shoes, would you have the courage to risk a brilliant and carefully constructed career for a forbidden love? Between following society's rules or listening to your heart, which path would you choose? In a world where relationships in the corporate environment are so criticized, is it worth fighting for true love even when everyone seems to be against you? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.